Welcome back.
Oh shit! Wait, I haven't. Let me restart the timer. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
All right. So yes, let's just hop right back into more Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. So after they thwart Count Olaf in the first book, they then end up with their Uncle Montgomery Montgomery. He is a herpetologist. Steven, do you know what herpetology means?
It's a guy who gets herpes.
No, but they do make that joke in the... Neil Patrick Harris does make that joke. It's like...
Tiny squib, you broke fearless. Are you a hunter like me?
This is bestiary guy. He gives you the bestiary.
Okay, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, if you kill enough people, like, the bestiary will become full. See, bleh. And... yeah, the Hunter's Journal. Okay, so... a herpetologist is somebody who studies reptiles. And which gives us rise to the...
And there you can see it all.
Yep, which gives us rise to the name of the second book, The Reptile Room. So, The Reptile Room is a room full of reptiles in which Montgomery Montgomery does his research.
Is that where the dinosaur man who won't cure cancer is?
I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Memes. Anyways, so... Dr. Montgomery Montgomery seems like an amazing...
I say one of the orphans.
Seems like an amazing guardian for them. So, of course, judging by the name, things aren't going to go well for the Baudelaire orphans. There's going to be a series of unfortunate events that could be happening, one might say. Basically, what happens is his assistant mysteriously resigns. And he gets a new assistant. I can't remember his name exactly, but...
Isn't it Olaf?
Yes, but he's Count Olaf, basically. He shows up like, hello, I am your new assistant. And the Baudelaire orphans is like, oh my god. And Montgomery is like, oh yes, please, come on in. Yes, I know. And they're all suspicious of each other. Right off the bat. Montgomery is like, I'm sorry, kids. I had no idea our enemies would catch up to us so quickly. It's like... So you know that he's a fake. Yes, of course I know he's a fake. What do I look like, an idiot? and then they end up going to a movie and some secret code ends up starting to become deciphered. And which really digs deeper into this mystery that is not quite being told to the kids yet, so it's not quite being told to us yet. That lady that you just saw jump down, she'll become important later.
Yeah, we've already seen her once, but...
Oh, okay, my bad. So yeah, Dr. Montgomery Montgomery has a snake which he has named the Incredibly Deadly Viper. Now here's the joke, it's a misnomer. He's just gonna start his own YouTube prank channel and prank the rest of the Herpetological Society because they made fun of his name all the time.
Wait, really?
Yes. He is going to show, it's a new, breed of viper that's incredibly harmless, but he's going to call it the Incredibly Deadly Viper and then let it loose on the entire Herpetological Society and act like, oh my god, it's loose, everyone, we're all going to die, run. It's like, haha, pranked you guys because you made fun of my name. So that's really hilarious. And then eventually, after a little while, he gets murdered by Count Olaf.
Uh-huh.
And, oh wait, I forgot to mention one quick little joke before I get to that. So it's like, my assistant, you need to come to the movies with us. No, thank you. I don't really like movies. I prefer long-form television. It's so much more convenient just to watch things from the convenience of your own house. And then Neil Patrick Harris stares at the camera and smiles. They do quite a bit of fourth wall breaking in this episode, which I really, really liked. And he's just talking on the phone with one of his henchmen. It's like, yes, I know it's so much more convenient just to do long-form stuff. Just meet us at the movies. I know it's annoying watching ads. And he looks at the camera and just, shakes his eyes. Just really, I gotta say, really good humor. They did a great job bringing this book series that was originally released in 1999 into the modern era.
Yeah.
They have a lot of technological references that in no way would have existed when the book first came out, and I really appreciate it a lot.
I should be here yet.
Okay, but anyways, yes, Dr. Montgomery ends up getting murdered, and he gets murdered by Count Olaf, and Count Olaf is blaming the Incredibly Deadly Viper.
How did he kill him? Or do we not know?
I'll get to it really quickly.
Yeah.
In a bit. So basically, he blames the Incredibly Deadly Viper, and the Baudelaire orphans are like, no, it's a misnomer, blah, blah, blah. That's Count Olaf, and he killed him. And Mr. Poe was the one who showed up to help them first. And it's like, oh my god, are you kidding me? We need to call the police immediately. And this is right after they accidentally got into a car crash with each other. And Count Olaf is just like, what? Call the police. Why, man? It's just a fender bender. It's okay. It's like, no, because someone died. He's like, oh, yeah, that. I forgot about that. Absolutely, we need to look into that. So, Count Olaf gets his entire crew to come, and his henchmen are the entire people who come to help out with the situation. And it's like, no, it's the incredibly deadly Viper who murdered Montgomery Montgomery. Can't get through there yet.
Yeah, and the guy's right over there. You can see his little sheddings.
Yeah, but anyways, they then spend the rest of the show, like, because they get, like, a really gruesome zoom in on, like, you can see 2 puncture holes in Montgomery's face, and, like, his face is kind of, like, succumbing to necrosis, and his eye is bloodshot. It's like, ooh, baby, that's quite a violent scene for the kids to see. But I suppose that's just it. That's just their life, a series of unfortunate events for them. So then they eventually go through everything, and they end up proving that Montgomery was murdered by Count Olaf because he had this special device where he attached 2 syringes onto a gun and punctured it right into his face, and it made it look like a snake bite. And they do this by showing that they release the incredibly deadly Viper and it starts playing around with Sunny. And they're just like, oh, look how much fun it's having. It's like, oh, well, I guess it really isn't that deadly after all. So wait, what were you, Baudelaire Orphan, saying?
I died.
Oh, fuck.
It did 2 damage. I didn't know it did that.
Okay. Oh, the big guys?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I lose all my money.
Yeah, he loses all his money, and he only gets a fraction of his soul gauge back. And in order to get all of it back, he needs to go back and find his original, like, soul gauge. You guys will see in a minute.
I don't have a map.
Yeah, alright, so that is the basic summary. There's a whole lot more to get at. Like I said, I need to quickly summarize this stuff in order to fit it all into one episode. But there's a lot more to these episodes, and if you listen to this and you thought it sounds funny, trust me, there's a whole lot more funny stuff that I haven't got at yet. But we're going to instead, after this, move down to book number 3 in the series, The Wide Window. So in The Wide Window, they basically go to a port, basically.
Oh, is this the Lighthouse one?
Yes, this is the
I thought that was the 4th book.
No, the 4th book is called The Miserable Mill. We'll get to that in a minute. No, the third... In the 3rd book... Oh, right, I forgot. You attack these guys, and then they send, like, the giant, like, ball chasing you right away. But anyways, yeah. In the third book, they have a guardian who is the most scared person on planet Earth. So, basically, they used to describe her like, she is a fierce and formidable person for you to be with. I can't even remember her name anymore. It's not important, though. And, yeah, so the kids are living with her, and she's basically saying everything is like, it's like, well, orphans, we're going to be having, Violet Cost and Sunny, we're going to be having soup for dinner tonight. Oh, okay. It's like, oh, it's cold soup. First off, here's Steve's shadow. Steve murders his shadow, and then he ends up getting all of his stuff back.
Yeah. Fuck no. Okay, this should work.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're having cold soup. It's like, of course, I never turn on them. I never turn on the oven. It might explode.
Yeah.
It's like, now, watch out. Make sure you are very careful opening the doors. Open it by the door handle. You don't want splinters to hurt you. It could get an infection and you could die. That's this entire lady's whole, like, plot from the very beginning.
Alright, so here's another thing. I can open up a bank account.
I forgot about this.
There we go.
Oh, man. Yeah, and after a while, she ends up finding a new husband. They encourage her to start dating again after her one husband was killed.
I guess I could probably save a bit for a good reason.
And her husband was killed by the Lachrymose leeches. So they live on Lake Lachrymose, and the leeches there are incredibly deadly. Not like the Viper from the 2nd book.
Why do they live there?
I don't know. I'll be honest, Steve, you got me on that. They offer boat tours of Lake Lachrymose, but you're not allowed to eat 30 minutes before you go swimming. Not because of the age-old adage of you might get stomach cramps, but because the Lachrymose leeches will smell the food and devour you. So, yeah, after a while, she ends up dating Count Olaf for a little while. Captain Sham, as he's known in Book 3. And then, what was I getting at? I kind of forget how she realizes. Oh, right, she realizes it's Count Olaf because Count Olaf eventually begins threatening her. And so she has to write a suicide note.
Aw.
But basically, what she does is, another thing about her is she's obsessed with grammar.
Yeah, I got another stag here,
Yeah.
so it's a quick way to get to the bank.
Yeah. So they notice that she's obsessed with grammar, and in her suicide note, there are a whole bunch of typos. So they end up figuring out, like, oh, it's a code we gotta crack. And eventually, they end up cracking the code, and they end up finding...
Look at how adorable she is.
They end up cracking the code and finding out which cave she's hid out in. And she's like, great, we can just live here forever. It's like, we're not spending the rest of our lives in a cave. Used to be fierce and formidable. What happened? So eventually they end up convincing her to go back onto the seas and to attack, to confront Count Olaf.
And she dies.
I mean, we'll get to that in a bit. So basically, she accidentally eats a banana before the kids show up, and I guess she just forgot about that. And there's a hurricane, which ends up starting to destroy the raft. And if they fall into Lake Lacrimose, they're gonna die. Well, the orphans aren't. Excuse me, the orphans aren't gonna die, but she is gonna die. She's like, oh my god, I ate a banana. We're all gonna die, orphans. It's like, no, first off, no, you're gonna die. But second off, no, we're going to be just fine. And then eventually, what they end up doing is they need to light a scarf on fire in order to signal for help in the middle of the ocean, or in the middle of Lake Lacrimose. And basically how this happens, and something that I haven't touched on yet, but it's been sort of a running thing throughout the whole series, is that there are two characters, a mother and a father, played by Will Arnett and Colby Smulders.
Fuck.
Yes, you know Will Arnett?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know Colby Smulders?
No.
She is Robin from How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They play the parents, and they're basically just kind of traveling around, and it's a B-plot which we're told absolutely nothing about going on. But yeah, so basically what happens is during this B-plot, they fly overhead and they shine a light down on them, and it ends up hitting off Klaus's glasses and lighting a scarf on fire. So basically they're able to get it lit up. This plot point between the mother and the father will become a bit more important later. I just wanted to finally get that whole thing that's been happening throughout the whole series so far out right now. However, the only people that ended up seeing the scarf that was on fire was Captain Sham, aka Count Olaf. And the reason he saw it is because he's disguised as a boat rentalman giving tours of the lake. So he has access to all of these boats. And here's another fun little bit where the books and the where the books and the story diverged. So in the Netflix series, they end up boarding on the ship with Count Olaf, and finally, their guardian is able to get her fierce and formidable attitude back, because that she was known as a fierce and formidable person, but she ended up becoming a complete pushover after her husband died to the Lacrimose leeches. But then she suddenly remembered that I think Count Olaf was kind of responsible for that death as well. So she finally stood up to Count Olaf, and he's like, interesting. And the way she stood up to him was she corrected his grammar. It's like, interesting. So if I were to say that you had been pushed over this boat to the Lacrimose leeches, then you would not like that. But if I were to say that you have been, then you would be okay with it. And she was just like, yes. I mean, no? It's like, interesting. I think I'm finally starting to understand your lessons. And then she just pushes her over, and the Lacrimose leeches devour her. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's right in the title, Steve. Series of unfortunate events. Another one down the drain. I want to say this because in the books, what ends up happening is she's still a complete pansy to the very end, and she offers the Baudelaire orphans so that Count Olaf will let her go.
What the fuck is this?
I mean,
He's fucking dead. That's all I know.
Yeah, so she offers the Baudelaire orphans to Count Olaf. It's like, please take them. Just let me go. I don't want them anymore. It's like, man, they really retconned it to make her seem like a bit more badass at the end of it all. I see.
Not a complete shitlord.
Yep, but she dies either way. And then eventually they end up finding out that Captain Sham is Count Olaf, which is another good message by Mr. Poe. It's like, orphans, you three orphans are way too scared. You guys thought Montgomery's assistant was Count Olaf, and they were just like, he was Count Olaf! It's like, orphans, what I'm getting at is, you have no proof. Blah, blah, blah. And of course they end up being right again, but Count Olaf and his crew is some weird R-rated version of Team Rocket, so they end up getting away with everything. And Mr. Poe is just like, you're going to jail for a long time, Count Olaf, and orphans, you're coming with me. But at the end of this episode, they're just like, we can't trust Captain, we can't trust Mr. Poe, we need to get out of here. So what they end up doing is they end up hitching a ride to Lucky's Lumber Mill. On the back of a pickup truck, which had that label on it. And, which goes in more to the mystery, which I won't get all into. If you're more interested in that, go watch the series. But yeah, basically, they have reason to believe that they should go to Lucky's Lumber Mill. So they hitch a ride as hitchhikers and then get out of there. And then Mr. Poe ends up getting distracted. It's like, Baudelaires, where did you go? And as he's distracted by the Baudelaires, Count Olaf and all his henchmen run away in the opposite direction. And then he turns around like, Count Olaf, where did you go? Oh, come on. End book 3, basically.
Yeah.
All right, now, how far are we into this episode? I think we're making decent time. Okay, so we're at the 16-minute mark, so...
You just finish it.
Yeah, well, I'll just finish up in a normal pace. So, book number 4, The Miserable Mill. So, basically, there's no official guardian for the Baudelaire orphans in book number 4, because they hitchhiked a ride to Lucky's Lumber Mill. And basically, once they got there, they noticed something strange. It says, like, warning, all trespassers will be put to hard labor. So they end up walking in, and sure enough, they are forced into hard labor. Which is just hilarious, because at one point there is a conversation between Count Olaf, who, spoiler alert, shows up in this episode as well. He says to the owner of the lumber mill, it's like, don't you want these orphans to have a happy home? And the guy's like, absolutely not. And she's like, and Count Olaf's like, beg your pardon. I mean, what? And he is a man who wants efficiency and he wants work done no matter what the cost.
So he's mean.
Sure. His name is Sir. The reason you call him Sir is because his name is far too long and complicated for anyone to correctly pronounce.
Also, if you take time to say it, you're decreasing efficiency.
Exactly. It's like, everyone calls me Sir, even my partner. It's like, oh, he's your partner, like your business partner. And then Lemony Snicket comes in, it's like, well, it could mean business partner, but thanks to recent Supreme Court rulings and recent societal norm shifts, the term partner also has a new meaning. And then it just cuts back to the show. Which is really good. Lemony Snicket / Patrick Warburton always occasionally pops in and has like a quick anecdote really quickly, like several times an episode, which is just very entertaining. So they end up falling into Lucky's Lumber Mill, which for this case is known as the Miserable Mill, and they're forced to be put into hard labor. And at one point, a man, ain't got shit going on here, Steve. At one point, a man just sort of out of nowhere destroys Klaus's glasses. So he has to go to the local optometrist. And eventually then, Klaus comes back from the local optometrist, just completely complacent with everything that's happening in the lumber mill. Maybe you're seeing where this book is going at this point.
Yeah.
So the local optometrist is also a hypnotist who is hypnotizing the lumber mill workers to be able to love work no matter what the cost. Sir has no idea about any of this, but he doesn't care. He's
and he's not going to get hypnotized, I'm guessing? Or is that...
No, because he doesn't give a shit. Okay. As long as work is getting done at the lumber mill, Sir is happy.
Okay.
Yeah, so eventually, Count Olaf's plan this time is he needs to make the Baudelaire orphans seem like they're more trouble than they're worth to Sir. Because technically they're under Sir's care right now, because obviously Count Olaf can't try to obtain them legally.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and it's too hard to steal them, I guess. So basically, the optometrist is Count Olaf's ex-girlfriend. So he tries to reignite an old flame with her in order to concoct a plan together, even though he doesn't give a shit about her at all. He's like, it'll be us together again, my love. Pardon me a second.
Yeah, go for it. I understand you've been talking a lot about Lemony Snicket.
Yeah, my throat's dying over here, but it's good. And basically, he needs to create an accident, which actually 2 accidents end up happening at Lucky's Lumber Mill. And he's like, I regret to inform you that there are 2 accidents that will actually happen at Lucky's Lumber Mill. One of which will result in a man losing a precious body part. And I won't go too far into that because we're out of time, but it's like, and another of which will result in a horrific loss of life. So basically, what ends up happening in the Miserable Mill is they hypnotize Sir's partner to be completely complacent with everything that's happening. And Klaus is going to put him on a buzzsaw, because it's a lumber yard, right? They have a whole bunch of stuff for cutting up wood. So they're going to cut Sir's partner in half. Yeah, it's fucked up. And then eventually they end up figuring out, the secret word to end up breaking the hypnosis.
Banana bread?
No, that is the word in Spy Party.
Yeah.
For now out on Steam that you can use to trick people into thinking that you are a NPC. But anyways, back to the Miserable Mill. They end up breaking Klaus out of the hypnotic state, and then they also end up figuring out the other one to end up breaking all of the mill workers out of their state. So there ends up becoming an angry mob filling up Lucky's lumber mill, and they're all about to just completely fuck up everything about
The lumber mill?
Lucky's lumber mill. And they're all freaking out and like backing up, and then Count Olaf is just like, no, take her, she's the optometrist, you want her, not me. It's like, what? But I thought there was something between us. It's like, yeah, sure, right.
Yeah.
And then eventually the optometrist starts losing her mind and just starts backing away from the crowd, but she's also backing closer and closer into a furnace, and eventually she just ends up tripping backwards and falling right back into a furnace. And so Count Olaf's ex-girlfriend burns to death. Oh yeah, this person. The monster hunter who sucks at being a monster hunter. Okay. So yeah, basically, at the end of it all, Mr. Poe, I believe, ends up finding the children again at Lucky's lumber mill and ends up taking them to boarding school until chapter 5. Now, I have barely even touched on maybe 50% of what's happening in a series of Unfortunate Events Netflix series. There's an entire, subplot that I didn't even touch on with these two people, with Will Arnett and Colby Smulders going on, that people will find, I'm sure, very interesting. So, if I can say anything about a series of Unfortunate Events is, I think it's really good. It's really hard for me to give a genuine recommendation because, obviously, I got nostalgia goggles for series of Unfortunate Events.
So yeah, let's end it.
So I'll just summarize it all up by saying it's very funny, very dark, and it has what I think is an interesting story and mystery going on to it, but I can't give you a guaranteed recommendation. But anyways.
Alright, we'll talk to him next time.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't actually know they had a series because I probably would have watched it myself.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Steve, I'd recommend you'd watch it because, as I said, I haven't talked about everything.
Yeah, well, I don't have Netflix available for me.
I thought Kevin had it.
Oh, fuck.
I'm pretty sure Kevin has it.
Okay, well.
Anywhoozle, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed our summary of Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, the subscribe button is down below. We appreciate that. Also, the likes in the comments. And what I will say is that you get to hear Patrick Warburton screaming at the top of his lungs in this series at one point. And I gotta say, Patrick Warburton screaming at the top of his lungs is a truly beautiful thing that I love hearing.
Alright, so everyone, for every like we get this episode, I'll adopt an orphan.
We'll see you next time, everyone.
Goodbye.